We're going to try and see what's gotten a lot of votes, and I'm going to try and address that together, okay? Okay, number one on the list is this question here, which says, is it the responsibility of the production companies to obtain production insurance for freelancers? Actually, Vivek answered that before coming on stage. Okay, so I'm just going to ask for another opinion from, I'm going to ask Jasmine, I'm going to ask Pei Ling, okay, to give their perspective. So we'll ask Jasmine first. What's your perspective on this?
Well, in fact, I mean, Vivek was saying that that was your opinion, and that's what NTUC would like to lobby for, and that's indeed, I think, something that the Film and TV Guild Working Group would like to lobby for, because I think it's one of those things that many of our group members, working group members, have pointed out, that even as a freelancer, when you work on a film set, you are asked to be at a certain location at certain hours using certain tools. So for that, in all intents and purposes, sounds like, rhymes with, seems like that you are an employee for the duration of the shoot. So to that purposes, I think the coverage should come from the production company. That's an opinion.
Okay. So we're just going to ask Pei Ling to give her perspective on this as well.
I've met up with quite a few production houses, in fact, and we've discussed this issue on production insurance. And in fact, most production houses, that's what they want as well, because they feel responsible, you know. But of course, I wouldn't say that all production houses feel the same way. But most of them that I meet, they're eager to get themselves covered and to protect the crew, and as well as the employees that work for them. But now the issue lies with the fact that work injury compensation, which is a legislation by the Ministry of Manpower, covers full-time employees. And at the moment, freelancers are not covered under the Act. So for most production companies that I know, they do purchase work injury compensation insurance. And they know, because they know that, hey, that's the most basic that I can do for my employees. And they're very eager about that. But because there hasn't been proper production insurance in place that is affordable and accessible, so that is why they're caught in this situation, whereby there's a production happening and they're not sure how best to cover it. So this is the problem that we are trying to solve at the moment as well, with travel insurance, as well as to negotiate with insurers to cover production shoots while they happen in Singapore. So this is what we're trying to do right now.
To clarify the question, right, are we talking about personal accident, as in should this production, because production insurance is too broad. So when we say production insurance, are we saying something happened to the production, therefore the production got delayed? Are we talking about personal accident, or are we talking about both? And is there actually recourse for both right now?
Okay, now when it comes to production insurance, I'm sure a lot of us have worked on feature films before, and it comes as a whole package. It includes things like public liability, errors and omission, something to cover your money, your equipment, your crew, your actors, and your props, and so forth, and that's the whole range. So that is what we know as production insurance. But I think what I think most of us are concerned about is actually the personal accident part, things that concern your safety. Will you be compensated if you were to be involved in an accident?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, just to give some perspective, why would a company not want to pay for a personal accident? Okay, the only reason why I know this is because Pei Ling taught me. Okay, the personal accident insurance is covered on a yearly basis, correct? Yes, no, yearly basis, and it's personal to you. So for a production company to say, I'm going to buy insurance for you, but you benefit from it, I can only use it for like the 1 month I hire you for, then you benefit the rest of 11 months. Which I'm not using you in that sense. It sounds very evil, I'm sorry, the way I said it, okay, but basically what the company is saying, why should I pay for your personal insurance? It's not mine, right? It's something that will benefit you. I only can benefit from you for 15 days or 2 days or 1 month. Okay, so therein lies the tussle, okay? So perhaps I'll just ask Mr. Vivek Kumar, what do you think is the perspective right now in terms of where can we find this middle? Because I know there are negotiations going, I can't announce anything, but I do know that the production companies are not heartless, they're actually looking at this very seriously.
I agree. I think to put it in perspective, people want to do the right thing. Everybody wants to do the right thing. The question is, is doing that right thing feasible and sustainable? These are the two factors. Feasible means, is there a product available? Second is it sustainable? By going for that product, is my production is still going to get me bread and butter, or is that going to go out of whack? So these are the two key factors. And it requires 4 parties to be part of that discussion. It does require the product owner, so an insurance product that can be made available, whether it is on the production period basis, or whether it is at least on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, if not annual, because annual is just too long. I think Ian is right. Second, of course, are the independent producer, the production companies. They need to assess it from the perspective of cost impact. The Media Development Authority as well, and also the freelancers' interests. So as Ian pointed out, those discussions are going on, and we generally feel the direction is right, that people are interested in making that step. So this is our lobbying position. Of course, as we move towards it, we need to find the right product at the right price, so that for the production house it's possible to buy.
Okay. Before I go on to that, gentleman, I know, sorry, I saw you. So just to clarify, okay, because there's no iPro representative here, okay, there is also no lawyer. It's because there was actually a legal session before this, so we didn't feel we want to duplicate. The reason why an iPro company might not want to pay for your personal accident is because they cannot justify it to MediaCorp either. So when they put it as a line item in a budget, right, it's not valid. It's not a valid line item in the MediaCorp budget or a broadcaster budget. To that end, before I get to the gentleman, so sorry, I know I saw you. I want to ask Fran, how is it done for perhaps co-productions and overseas productions? What is the stance that they take in terms of insurance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, for any productions that we have involved, it's pretty much based on project basic. So we do take personal insurance for any crew, including freelance, inclusive, and everyone that is part of the project. So we're talking about crew, cast, and then also equipment, location, public liability. So everything is packaged in as a project, and but the duration is the duration for the project. So meaning that you engage people during the pre-production, that people is covered during the production, and post-production there is only a few of the crew left.
So it is possible to purchase like personal accident for short duration. Was it done locally,
yes,
or was it?
No, it's locally.
Oh, it's done locally. Okay, so there is recourse for that. So perhaps we should look at it. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Gary. I'm coming from a perspective of a freelancer as well as a producer for a production company. Normally, it's my job to deal with the paperwork as well as to get the insurance done for the freelancers working under me. A lot of them are like students and all that, so they're not likely to have their own insurance. The biggest issue I think you all highlighted is the duration. It is not worthwhile for us to buy the insurance to pay for the person for one entire year when I may need him for only from a week to 3 months. All right, that's the fact of the matter. But another point I need to highlight, I do have a valid insurance license, and I do group insurance. So why can't we work it on a basis like either as a project, what I used to do was project, contractor, or risk plans. I think the person may know what we're talking about. The underwriting is about 10 days. The period is normally 2 months, 3 months. That's the length, is to cover project. You think of it as a project insurance. It covers public liability, workman compensation, everything. That's contractor or risk. The other methodology is, can a production company have an open-ended group insurance plan? When I have the freelancers come in, I add their names to the plan. When they leave, I take their names off the plan. You charge me on a prorated basis or whatever. We settle the accounts end of the year. I think that would, from a producer point of view, it's easier for me to manage. I look at it from my entire costing, from my entire year point of view.
Okay, so we'll take the second question on board, which is it possible to have an open system where freelancers enter and leave the system? Oh, okay.
You're absolutely right, actually. I wanted to say that from a negotiation perspective with the insurance companies, I will give the example of the construction industry. Okay, and the construction industry is done in such a way that you have a principal. If you remember Alvin's presentation earlier, you have a principal, the guy that actually engages everyone to do the job, or rather the main contractor to do the job. So it could be a production house. Okay, and then the main contractor will do some of the work, and then he will have his subcontractors. Okay, and somewhere along the lines, there will be freelance people involved. Okay, and it's actually the same thing as what you guys do, freelancers. Okay, and it was absolutely right. If they do a building project, they actually have a contractor's all-risk insurance, okay, to cover the whole building project, and workman's compensation, or rather work injury compensation insurance, okay, to cover all employees involved in the project. Okay, from the very top, main contractor, subcontractors, employees, whichever subcontractor it is, all the way to sub contractor. Okay, their employees, okay, will all be covered. Okay, so from a negotiations perspective, using that, all you have to do is just, what we are thinking of doing is going to the insurers and saying that, look, we want it on the same basis. And how long is actually a construction project? It can range, of course, from a whole big building, it can be a couple of years, or it can be actually just an interior renovation job, which still actually involves a lot of subcontractors. The guy that does the carpentry, the guy that does the door frames, the guy that actually provides the tiling, and so on and so forth. Okay, all the employees are involved. Okay, and that could be only 3 months. Okay, so from that same perspective, okay, you could always ask underwriters to then underwrite a particular production on that same basis, whether it is the production insurance itself, which I know is available in the market, okay, and work injury compensation. Okay, so the second part of it, which was brought up, the group insurance part. Okay, more often than not, if you want to start adding names, and especially on a name basis, and if traffic is actually quite often, it's quite frequent, okay, then it's administratively cumbersome. Okay, and most insurers like to do it on a headcount basis. And if you can do that, you can negotiate with them, okay, then that again is a possible solution.
Okay. So the question right now is it not happening, or is it doable, just we're not doing it? Are we not doing it?
I've not met any insurers who's willing to use the contractor all risk model to cover production.
Let me throw that to Pei Ling then. So what's...
Okay, I have a client, it's a production house, a local one. They purchase WICA, work injury compensation, for their employees. So that sort of covers their needs in that sense. And on top of that, they have a group personal accident on a head count basis, on an unnamed basis, to cover their crew, the freelance ones. So then they have a unnamed 5 crew. So because as and when at certain time, at any point in time in the whole year, they usually have about 5 freelancers that work for them. So of course, freelancers come and go. That is why it works on an unnamed basis. So that might actually meet the needs of what you're talking about.
So I think that perhaps right now what we need to do, right, I think we have to move on quite soon, but I think what we need to do is perhaps, in terms of education, in terms of encouragement, right, is to encourage our production houses to continue that dialogue with people who are experts in insurance like yourself, to create these plans. Because you see, if they have no impetus to create the plan, right, it's just not going to happen, I'll be very frank. And of course, the other issue which I have to ask you guys is it a bulk issue? Is there just not enough reason for the insurance companies to do it because there's just no bulk? Because at least construction there's bulk. Is it a bulk issue?
Well, I don't think it's a bulk issue per se. It's a matter of explaining to underwriters what the project is about, okay, what the production is about, what's really happening, okay, and for them to look at it and say that, yes, I accept the risk exposures, okay, I understand what is going on, I understand what you are saying, and the example you have given and how similar it is, and then they say, yes, I'm willing to do so. Well, unfortunately, there are a couple of factors involved. To a certain extent, bulk, if you want to say bulk, it's not so much that there isn't that much demand from the market, okay, but it's also whether a particular insurer sees it viable to do this business. Sometimes they are willing to do so because of the relationship with either the client, if you have got certain other insurances with them, and then and you approach them on this, they look at it, they see you as a valued customer, they feel that yes, I'm willing to do so, or perhaps because Synergy has that much business with Tokyo Marine, okay, and then they negotiate on this behalf and they say that, look, these are possibilities, or at least on the back of my portfolio with you, could you please consider? Yeah, and unfortunately there are these little factors that come into play.
Yeah.
I think if you talk in terms of bulk, I think we do have certain sort of There's certain mechanisms you can write on. For example, mechanism is not the right word. What I mean to refer to is, for example, Media Development Authority. Now, several hundreds of millions is spent on public service broadcast program grants. So this is taxpayers' money. So a lot of what you see on TV, across the channels, on radio, that's paid for by taxpayers' money. So according to that commission for that can be worked in. And in fact, MDA is working towards making that a condition across. And of course, in doing that, you must recognize cost of living, things grow, budgets grow. So those are decisions to be made. But that's been happening over the last few years. They're moving towards that.
In case you're wondering, yeah, MDA is not heartless, by the way. MDA really is looking at this. No, somebody sniggered. Okay, so MDA is not heartless. Okay, so MDA is seriously looking at this issue and trying to figure out how to include something which we thought was basic, insurance, into budgets here. Okay, because it didn't really become practice. I know Mr. Vivek wants to add something.
Yeah. So just one last one. So I wanted to make that point as well, that MDA is looking into it without divulging too much. The second, of course, is that the point about group insurance, which I think is very valid as well. So for example, for NTUC, for all our NTUC members, which is about 830,000 people, we do buy a group insurance. So long as you are an NTUC member, you are covered under our group insurance. And because the base is so wide, it offers us, economies of scale to do that.
Okay.
May I ask that under group personal accidents insurance, now if it's an injury that's sustained on a set, would that be valid?
Under the group insurance that we have, it covers both at work and off work. So we have included both the elements because ultimately our members are primarily workers. So if we leave out the work part completely, it won't be fair. However, the work part is lower than when you are off work, but both of them are covered.
Just to frame this conversation a little bit, right? In case anyone here is a freelancer and saying, hey, should I buy a personal accident in the first place? Can you just give us a ballpark figure on what PA costs, personal accident? Just
now when I was talking about the personal accident plan by Tenet Sompo PA Star, right? For class 1, that means if you're if you're an editor or an indoor occupation, it's $95 a year.
Okay, so sorry, let's jump to class 3. What's class 3?
Class 3, it's about 140
a year, right?
A
okay,
year.
The thing is this, the only reason why I asked that question is this: if you wait for the production houses to do it, the answer is don't, okay? In the meantime, please don't go risk your life, right, for $140, okay? Just go buy the $140 first, then we go fight it out with the production houses if need be, okay? But please go and protect yourself first. Yes, hi, Seth.
Hi, Sebastian Tan. I run a production house called the Shooting Gallery. I'm very concerned, right? I think we should be realistic and to know that as a production house owner, is a heavy burden to maintain or to actually look at our overheads, right? Although we had over the years have a blanket cover for everybody that's working in our production. So whether it's a freelancer or otherwise, so we actually have a blanket, right? That's covered throughout the year. But also as a production house owner, I'm very concerned the fact that we should not take the responsibility away from freelance professionals and say that, okay, all this responsibility is being put to the production house. I think we must always remember that everyone should take on the responsibility to protect themselves. I think that's very important. We should not forget it. When Bertrand had the accident, I went around and asked a lot of freelancers, and a lot of them don't think that it's important for them to cover themselves. We should not leave that to the responsibility of the production house, but everyone should take that responsibility. And I think responsible production houses should look at that, but then that should not be the sole responsibility of the production house.
Yeah. Because, okay, the thing is, if you wait for the production houses, right, you might meet some good ones. There'll be good ones to say, you know what, 12 months or 1 month, I don't care, I'll just pay for it, okay? Because when you're in Hong Kong or Australia, I don't want you to get into trouble. There'll be the ones who say, hey, I only pay 1/12 of the $140 and then start negotiate with you. Don't bother lah. I think the most important thing is, as a professional, please protect yourself first, then we talk about negotiation after, because it doesn't cost $1,000, $140. I think it's worthwhile. Okay, with that, we should have answered this question. Oh my gosh, we practically used up the entire Q&A. Sorry, what's wrong?
Sorry, I made a mistake. For class 3, that means if you're a tech crew, you're handling equipment, the premium is $260.
260, okay.
Per year.
Okay, please don't quibble over 260 lah. Okay, really. It's like 1 day's salary for some of you lah.
Yeah, and Ian, if I could offer also another perspective to this. and the production house owner is, well, he has his perspective, correct? I mean, and that's a valid perspective. Let's not only just look at it from the viewpoint of a media professional protecting yourself as a professional. Actually, it is a personal responsibility. I mean, now know that there are production houses and employers that would cover their freelancers. Okay, but then again, the freelancers will not always be on the job. And just looking at personal interests, okay, you should actually cover yourself because you've got to think of your families. Okay, so from a personal financial planning perspective, which Pei Ling can expound a lot more on, okay, that's something really you need to concern yourself with. And then as and when you actually are on the job, and Yuan is right, don't wait for the production houses to do so, but there are those that do cover. Yeah, and then when you're on the job, you know that yes, you are covered by that, but when you're not on the job, then there's a personal responsibility to your own families and to yourself. Look at their own personal financial planning aspect.
Yeah. Okay, so before the gentleman takes the mic, so just remember, okay, this panel is not about vilifying anybody. Production houses are very good people. If you've ever worked with Seb, you know he's a very good guy, okay? And his company is excellent, okay? So the thing is, it's not about finding who's wrong. Is it MBA's fault? Is it NTUC's fault? No, of course not. Is it production house's fault? Is it your own freelancer's fault? The thing is to protect yourself first, instead of fault finding, and then hopefully the legislation will work itself out eventually so that MBA can help everybody in the industry. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm Simon here. I'm also in the media industry, and I'm actually the General Secretary of the Union for Broadcasting. I've introduced to quite a number of my friends in the media industry. Join the union, NTUC. Only union member you can sign up a love policy underwritten by NTUC income. Okay, the premium can go as low as for 200,000, you only pay around $60 per month if you're between the age of 46 to 50. But let's say you're at a young age, based on 200,000, you only pay $40 per month. Okay. This policy only goes for union member. If you're not a union member, you cannot have it.
Sorry, so are you telling us about the policy? There's no question.
So the Mr. says that what I'm saying, I recommend to a lot of my media friends, sign up with union and get this benefit for it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
If I could just add, so Brother Simon Yam is the General Secretary of Singapore Union of Broadcasting Employees. So the union looks after the interests of the broadcasting employees and is an advocacy and lobbying group for them as well.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the hard question, which is, can we all, as media professionals in film and otherwise, join the broadcast union?
The answer is yes, because in 1992, there was an act of parliament where we set up the general branch membership or the GB membership, under which even if you are not in a unionized company, you can still join us. So the answer is you can still join us. As I mentioned, whether it is our union advisors or whether it is the NTUC advisory unit, we will be able to give you advice. We would like to do more than that, of course, as we are discussing here, lobbying, together with Jasmine and other groups. So that's an area that both the union and the labor movement, will be working more on. So to answer your question, yes.
Okay, so Jasmine.
So when we started on, a group of us came together and thought, okay, and in fact it was with the encouragement of Obed Kam, who was the previous CEO of MDA, who's now the permanent secretary of Ministry of Communications and Information. And we came to meet with NTUC, but I think at that point, they've not worked with media professionals before. So the idea is, but you're freelancers, so can you be a chapter or should you be so that there was an issue of that. So technically we can't, as freelancers, I can't join the union because I'm not an employee. The other thing to go towards that is, so apart from, the reason for this organization that we hope to set up, apart from this, again, it's not about fault finding. A lot of times you can preempt it, preventive measures and so to speak by educating yourself about what you need. So for example, apart from personal accident insurance, more pertinent to freelancers is also CPF contributions. So you have enough in MediShield. Now with MediShield Life, at least you have that coverage. But something that, amongst colleagues and friends, I always tell younger freelancers, make sure you have your medical, hospital and surgical insurance, because it's a duty to yourself and to your family members as well. So you must remember that responsibility to yourself as a professional and as a family person.
Okay, so just to clarify, because I need a clarification as well, because there is a broadcast union and it's been around for a long time. I think it's Service Media Corp professionals. is it a case where because we are not employees of any, or full-time employees for any company, we cannot actually join the broadcast union? Or because I hear Simon saying join NTUC, he didn't say join the broadcast union per se. Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out the differences.
I think that's a very good point. And in union membership, there are two categories. One is called an ordinary branch membership, where it has to be an employer-employee relationship, and the employer must be unionized, which therefore means that he has to fill up a Form B and he has to sign it off and recognize the union as the union representing the, the employees of the company. So that, the answer is no, the freelancers cannot join that union, so that's a valid point. Just to highlight, however, that SUBE is actually an industrial union, although it primarily the membership base is MediaCorp employees right now. The other one, which is the general branch membership, is more open because it is not linked to the company being unionized. We also have associations which are self-employed, which is not an employer-employee relationship, getting affiliated to the labor movement or to NTUC. So technically, I think Jasmine is right. You can't join the union per se if you are a freelancer. However, under the you can join the labor movement under the GB
which
membership.
Has certain privileges and it includes subsidized
training. It includes the group insurance,
sure.
And it includes the additional insurance that you can buy, as Brother Simon highlighted. Okay. However, there is I must highlight this, that there is a very specific role that if as FTVG gets formed, has got to play, which is the role of representing the interests of freelancers in areas where then we can support and we can lend our voice and our weight as well on a specific areas where we want to see things moved. Okay. So I think it's a question of collaboration, how we work together and move things forward.
Okay, so to clarify that point, basically what we're saying is this: MDA, nobody is psychic. Okay, nobody knows and understands the freelancers. But freelancers, so the whole point of FTVG is to form a body which will then represent the interests of the freelancers and media professionals and media practitioners out in the market. Okay, in fact, I don't think it's limited to freelancers actually.
No, so whether you own a production company, as long as you're, or whether you're employee, part-time, freelancer, as long as you're a film and TV media professional, we hope that people will join us.
Yeah, so basically we're waiting for it to be formalized, and I think MDA itself has been supportive of the FTVG forming, so that's where we are. I'm going to jump to this question now. The question is how can people get legal aid for injuries, for injuries, when companies refuse the responsibility?
If you talk about a person's actually get into injuries, if there's a employer and employee relationship, then they can always enter into this so-called workman compensation. So where this workman compensation, you just need to do an reporting with MOM. So the assessment, everything will be done by MOM and inform the insurance company to pay it. That's it. Very simple, very straightforward. So if they is talking about this employer and employee relationship, but they say you are a freelancer, it's going to be a problem because there is no employer-employee relationship. MOA cannot help you in terms of workman compensation. So this one you may actually end up in sue. You get a lawyer, sue against. And that would be end up a lot of issue. The ones will depends on who is negligence more, and the fight of this case will be cost a lot of times and money.
Okay.
Right.
Let's take the stance of a freelancer in this instance. Right? Who here can give us advice on where we can find legal aid for this situation? Fran, anything that people working at Malaysia? Okay, yeah, Mr. Vivek Kumar?
Well, so there are these tricky situations where the act is at this stage not allowing the respite. So that's where, together with the Law Society, Patrick has taken a very good initiative. Patrick Tay is the Labour MP, part of NTUC, and he has been championing for this. And he has managed to set up something called a legal clinic. So it happens every month, and if it is an employment-related query, we have our own IR practitioners and lawyers who are part of what we call the GB IR advisory unit. or they are the unions, they are the union leaders who are really able to advise. But in situations that are out of that, that's where these workshops come in handy. So it happens once in a month, and the union members can come and ask the questions, and how can they be helped. There is no guarantee that it is something that can be taken. So if you need a lawyer, I guess you will need a lawyer, because unfortunately NTUC lawyers can't represent you in a court of law. However, at least you will get a certain time with a lawyer who is doing pro bono work to get a sense of what is the merit of the case, and is it worth it for you to invest time and effort and money behind it.
In order to access this legal clinic that Patrick set up, is it something where you have to be an NTUC member to access it?
That's right. Okay. It is a service offered to NTUC members. So that's right.
That's why there's a booth outside, people. Okay. So in case you're interested. Okay.
It was last year that the Employment Act was under review under the Minister of Manpower, Tan Chuan Jin. Several of us, not just the Film and TV Guild Working Group, I mean, along with Janice Koh, who was then the Arts NMP, people from theatre, people from TV, people from artist management, we'd all gone to meet, attend sessions and also meet with the minister and some of the other representatives. But I think, it was one of those, freelancers is phase 2, we're not quite sure what to do with them yet. So I think because we weren't, ourselves, we're not, and MD is not psychic, neither is MOM. So they need to hear the need, they need to hear all that. So for now, it's been passed, but yet we are not covered. Yeah.
So if you are interested, please do voice your support to have FDVG formally formed. It's still pending, I think, at ROS, Registry of Societies. So hopefully it will pass very soon. Sorry,
okay,
you want to say something?
just add on, so when you actually go into that kind of situation, basically you talk about having injuries, accidents, you will still come back to who is right, who is wrong. Okay, as a freelancer, whether you do things in the correct manners or not, so all this. So if you are doing it wrong, end up you may get zero compensations.
Sure.
That's why it still come back to one of these issues: who is right, who is wrong. And who is doing things that not according to the procedures, all these safety procedures, all these come into place. You see?
Okay, so that's why the voice is very important, because if you want to see change, the voice must be heard, because if not, people don't think there's an issue. Because freelancers, as you all know, if you all don't pay CPF, you all know that you're off the radar, right? And I'm not sure I'm supposed to say this, but you know that you're off the radar, right? Nobody knows where you are. You're a blind spot in the system. Nobody knows who you are. They don't know that you earn money. Okay, so it's actually something very important to know that you must have a voice, you must have a channel, and the bigger the voice, the bigger the channel, the better it is. Yes, sir, Simon, how can I help you?
Referring to Mr. Chow's sort of concern, I just want to have a clarification from WSH. It stated that if you are involved in directing a work with contractors and subcontractors, you are hired, your duties are the same as that of an employer. If that principal hired him to do the job, if there's any accident, the principal is held responsible for him. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so is this true, or is it a case where freelancers still fall through the gap?
You're talking about freelancers. You're talking about freelancers. You're hiring freelancers for doing the job. Basically, you are hiring the freelancers to do the job. At this moment of times, under WHH, the freelancers have to take responsibility for his own safety. And so, of course, if the person being acting as a principal, okay, just to ensure that the person he engaged, which has a so-called competency to do the job, okay, if you get a freelancer who is not in the competency to do a job, then it still fall back to the liability for that so-called principal, because you are getting someone who is not competent to do a job. Okay, so before you actually getting a freelancer to get a job, okay, you have to make sure that that person is actually competent. Okay, but in terms of safety and health, of course, as a so-called principal, do actually need to so-called make sure, the freelancers, he actually get a job done which according to the requirement. But of course, of a lot of these so-called liability or still fall onto the freelancer. Okay, because freelancer have to make sure that he's safe, and freelancer have to make sure that his job don't cause any other hazard to any other person. That is under the Act.
Right, but I think he's talking more in terms of workplace workplace compensation. Sorry, that's the actual term. Is it work injury compensation? Yeah.
Okay, because of the freelancer, at this moment of time, it's not covered. It don't cover. Okay. That's why if I'm a principal, I engage a freelancer. I will not cover his so-called work injury compensation. It was not covered.
Okay, so it still needs to be looked
Yeah,
at.
so you need to look into your own insurance cover. If I do it for you, it's for this goodwill, but it may not be success because there's no employer and employee. You will talk about women comp unless some kind of PA, personal accident insurance policy, just for goodwill purposes.
Coolness.
But I mean, you don't tell that your personal employees employed by your company, you don't tell them that you're taking care of them out of goodwill either. But I'm just saying that I think specific to film and TV, and it depends on circumstances and cases. But you know, again, like if there's specific cases where you're told it has to be that location using those tools and it's dictated to you, that you know the power balance changes, right? You know, and you can say, well, if you don't accept it, don't work. Well, that puts a lot of people in a very vulnerable position. So I suppose it takes for more understanding and more articulation of what the film and TV industry goes through, you know, with all stakeholders to better understand, you know, what would serve us better. And when the next law review comes through, it could be, you know, better consultation as well.
Because legislation takes a long time to get done. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Can somebody get him a microphone? Thank you so much.
Yes. I think that one thing that's very important when you're a freelancer, you have to have a proof of employment. That is actually in any filmmaking. That's why that's very important that you have proper call sheet, proper production report. That's why the system is in place, but just in case some companies don't really have a clear message of all these things. If you're a crew, you have a proper call sheet from a company says that you have to appear at this time, at this place, whatever. There is already a contract. It's a written proof that you're being employed.
And a contract before you get the call sheet.
And at the end of the day, there is a production report. These people are on the payroll. Yes. They actually finished the job. Yes. So if there's anything happen, the only problem is that if these systems are not in place, then all the freelancers are not protected. Because you know, sometimes you know, if a principal, like a cameraman just get one of the boys' assistants, and they don't even know who that person is. It's not even on the call sheet. That's why sometimes all these systems need to be in place if any freelancer need to be protected.
Yes. Question of the room.
Which is a better industry.
Thank you so much. Question in the room. Anyone here has done a job without first signing a contract? I will teach you. Who has done a job without signing a contract? Most of us have, okay? All of us were in danger at that moment, okay? So just let you know, be very, very careful. And I think there is a lot, it won't be solved in this room. It won't be solved today. There's a lot of change that needs to occur, okay? We can probably take one or two more questions and when we're done. We didn't get through very much in the pigeonhole of the 45, huh? This is a very short question. Yes.
Ian, sorry, one question.
Sure, of course.
Sorry,
mine
is a bit sidetracked a bit from same question as Simon.
Yes.
But he is referring to freelancers.
Yes.
I'm from the education side.
Sure.
How about if it were concerned students? If anything will happen,
that
like
is a very good question.
I'm from an occupier. I'm like the principal, and I've got students. So if anything happen, who bear the responsibility? Is we try not to do who's right or who's wrong. We want to everybody to be responsible. Don't want to push it away to the students straight away. So how do we tackle this issue, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, for these situations, it can be like just now we talked about the internship. Okay, attachment, student attachment, or whatever. Okay, although they are not being employed, but under the Workplace Safety and Health Act, they are considered employee. So the insurance was being covered under work injury compensation, and also although they are not the employee, under the workplace, these are so-called Workplace Safety and Health Act, and the employer are responsible, okay, for ensure the workplace safety for everybody, whether for his employee and also for any person who is not his employee.
Okay. So it's a responsibility.
Sorry, I didn't say clearly. Maybe if it's in school.
His
in
is school.
Yeah.
So whose
Every
responsibility within
production
the
from
school?
our
school.
for every
Okay.
student production, we require them to do a risk assessment. So when they did the risk assessment, they clarify under low risk. But then student being students behind us, when we are not there, they do other things that beyond our knowledge kind of thing, and this thing happened. So how do we go?
Okay, if you are under school, you are basically there's a premises. Okay, there's a premises, and that premises are basically registered as a workplace. Okay, so which become the occupier. So the occupiers of that premises will be responsible to ensure the workplace safety for everybody. Yeah. So that is one requirement.
Even for students.
I think, are you asking more specifically for student film productions, and they're doing it as an assignment for a
The
course?
problem is this.
And I think that's probably basic
No.
school, and you might
Okay.
film outside of school
Correct.
premises.
That's the problem. That's the
So I think, like you said, you make the students do a risk assessment, and then if they don't do that, I mean, if they sign for it and they said that they do a certain risk assessment, I mean, and
Yeah.
if they violated
Correct.
because it's void
So we can
because
sue
they
the
did something
students?
separately. Well, then the students
No,
would.
just kidding.
It would then mean that the students would have to pay for the
Yeah.
damage themselves. But just quickly, it was a very interesting point that when you answered that, and you said that under workplace injury compensation, that interns and students will be covered, but yet freelancers are not. I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's bizarre, right?
That's the way
It cannot be bizarre. It has to be law cannot be bizarre.
Sorry.
Okay, the act was actually written in that way. You see, no? So actually, it's because that they are student. So who is going to pay for their compensation, and who is basically going to pay for their insurance? So the act actually even volunteer, not only just the school children, but you talk about the volunteer also covered.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I know there's a
Can I
pressing
just,
question. Can I?
Quick one. I'm with Shukor as well, the same university. You keep saying employee.
Yeah.
You said the students will be responsible or covered because they are also considered employee. I know in the safety, I'm in charge of my building operations and safety. I spoke to my chief safety officer, and he said, Bharat, if a walk-in guest falls down in my building because my floor was wet, I'm liable.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
That's true, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, students are paying us.
Yes.
They're technically our customers. How do you classify them as employees?
Basically, if you talk about the student, the students, you can see that where that one is basically a workplace where people are workplace. Okay, students can be considered as any other people's where you actually enter into these premises. Okay, and who is the responsibility to ensure their safety? Okay, it's just the occupiers, okay, who register own the license of that place have to ensure that the place is safe for everybody. Okay, it's not only just the employee. Okay, even if it's not an employee, it's still the occupier responsibilities that's to make sure that it's safe. Okay, for everybody.
I think I
we're talking about two separate cases.
Yes,
one
yes,
is about building premises, and one is about production where you're shooting at various different places, and you're creating different conditions out of those premises that the building owner may not be liable for.
I think I better help to clarify a little bit.
If you are actually out of the premises, it's out of premises, then it's still a responsibility that who is the one actually in charge of this activity. Okay, or perhaps it's a so-called person in charge of the this activity have to ensure the safety of the so-called students. All this.
Okay, I think I better help clarify a few things. Yeah.
Sorry, if you don't put it in the mic, we can't hear it. Can you? Sorry, my bad. Thank you.
We have a large university, so the premises here is the entire university.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So anything happens to them throughout the university campus.
Yes, it's under the university.
Okay. So they. Okay,
I think I better clarify a few things first. Okay, what Alvin said. Okay, now employees. Okay, where students and interns are considered employees, if not when they are actually studying in an institution, they are not employees of the institution. I think we have to make that clear. Okay, under the Work Injury Compensation Act. Okay, there are two things here: Work Injury Compensation Act, Workplace Safety and Health Act. Okay, two different things here. Okay, under the Work Injury Compensation Act, if a student, okay, is on attachment, industrial attachment, okay, somewhere with an employer, okay, yes, that Work Injury Compensation Act does come into play. Okay, the student or the intern is considered an employee. Okay, work injury compensation policies, actually, you could even clarify it further with a clause. Okay, there are clauses that could be added in, and students on attachment are also covered as long as whatever you pay the student, the so-called wages of the student, okay, is declared, okay, to the insurers. Okay, then they are also covered. Okay, so that's if they were out on industrial attachment in corporates, okay, and or they actually decide to do part-time work and so on and so forth. That's dealt with there. Okay, now with the workplace health and safety, okay, that's a different thing altogether, which
yes.
Alvin actually has been expounding on, and that relates really to the premises and what the cover that the type of insurance policy that really helps you is the public liability policy. So when you say yes, a customer comes in, you have you are supposed to, your staff are supposed to actually keep the place well kept. You're supposed to make sure that there are no hazards lying around, and unfortunately there's a pile of water which wasn't mopped up, okay, and somebody comes in, slips and falls. Okay, public liability insurance would deal with that. Okay, and now the question is, public liability insurance covers property damage to third parties, properties, okay, and bodily injury to third parties. Okay, now who is a third party? Okay, a customer coming in is considered a third party. Students studying at the institution, you might have to clarify that with your insurers. You might have to agree with them that, hey, look, I've got these guys that come in here all the time. Okay, staff, definitely not third parties, but students, we want to agree that they are third parties. If anything happens to them, and if they decide to take civil action against us, they decide to sue the organization, okay, my policy should respond to it. Okay, and these are things that you might have to make clear. Speak to your agent, speak to your broker, speak to the insurance company to clarify on that. Yeah, so hopefully I helped to clarify that part of it.
This is correct. Yes, what your explanation is right.
I wish we, okay, with specific to education, I highly recommend that Shuko and, so what's your name? Baran. That both of you probably take this offline and clarify further, because there's a lot of slippery slopes with students involved. So, but for the greater interest, right, I'm going to skip the third one, because it's anyway gone down in voting anyway. We're going to combine the 17 vote and the 16 vote together, okay? Because if not, we're never going to finish this, okay? So one question is, who dictates the standard rate for freelancers, okay? But I'm going to combine that and say that, okay, so do the freelancers charge their daily rate according to the work safety risk of involvement? For example, if I'm diving, or if I'm doing lighting, or if I'm doing rigging, okay? So I'm going to combine the two and say, okay, so we're going to talk about how does your rate change because of your risk, and who dictates this rate? Who's deciding the risk? Okay, is it production house, or is it freelancer? Is it who? Is it MDA? Okay, so I'm going to start off with Jasmine. You want to go?
I'm actually a bit
confused,
perplexed at why this question is
being raised. Okay, raised here. Because I think the question.
Well, no, I mean, I would say it's between, you know, if you went through special training and you have experience and you know how to handle equipment which would contribute to the success of a shoot, of which, you know, money is spent, budgeted to make this be successful and to have a product, you know, to have a film at the end of it. It's totally between the professional to work with the production companies to negotiate a rate. I don't know why there wouldn't be some kind of table of rates. I think it should be between both parties to negotiate, and totally based on your skills, completely based on the risk. Of course, what else would you base on? How nice you look? I mean, it doesn't.
I think I'm going to frame I don't know who asked this question. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to frame it in what I think it is. A grip earns, let's say, what, 150 to 250 a day. He might have to build a scaffold and climb that scaffold and bear higher risk than the sound recordist, who actually earns more than him per day. Okay? Now, this is not because I'm against sound recordists. I love sound recordists, okay? But I think that's what the question is, which is, if I'm bearing more risk, why am I not being paid more? Why is my risk higher but my pay lower? So perhaps you can.
I'm not sure if I'm qualified to answer that, but I would assume, you know, it's down to, again, it's a balance of, it's a composite of so many factors, right? It's your training, it's your ability to operate certain machinery that makes you that you are then, it's more a niche and specialized job than a job that can be done by a general population. But then of course it's all a bag of different factors that you have to put into, so I think the grip, if he thinks For example, taking your example, if you think your risk is very high and it's a very dangerous job, I mean, first you should be wondering why are there no health and safety regulations that you should be taking up, and having that kind of safety measures, so you shouldn't feel scared to go to work every day. And yes, and then you should demand for what you think you're worth.
Okay. So coming to that part, okay, so, and this is probably the last thing we can talk about before we end for the day in terms of Q&A, is in terms of the Singapore market, right, because we can't do price fixing. Okay, just to clarify.
Why are we talking about day rates?
I don't know. That's the thing.
Why don't we talk about day rates for anyone?
It was highly voted.
You know, I thought...
That's the only reason why we're talking about it, okay?
I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to say, oh, if it's somebody who has to be on set and do dangerous job compared to an executive producer who just sits in the office, then the risk assessment.
Yeah,
I don't understand this question in this context. I don't know why we're
Actually, I agree with Jasmine, you know. We have been really pushing very hard for easier, safer, and smarter jobs. How can we, in today's context, ask people or force people to do things that are going to be risky and threatening? You know, it just doesn't sound right. And of course, in terms of salary, then it should be based more on the value created, and therefore, what is the mutual assessment of that?
As Ian pointed out, first there's the Anti-Competition Act, right? So you cannot fix prices. I mean, haven't you all read about the modeling agencies and the ferry operators?
Can I chip in here? Even though I'm not a production person, I'm just guessing those people who ask these questions. I'm guessing it's based on project. So maybe someone is thinking that if I'm being hired to go for a project that has higher risk, maybe I have to dive underwater. For that particular project, do I charge more? Maybe that's the question.
Well, I would say, how much did you spend to learn how to dive and get a license and know how to operate equipment safely, so you come back with data that's completely going to be usable? Then, of course, that should be factored into your rate, as any person in the market in any industry would go by.
Okay, this is where it gets very tricky here, guys. Let's just be very honest here. If you are a diver and you have very specialized skill where only 5 guys in Singapore can dive, you can charge more, obviously, because you're in shortage, right? If you say, lighting, unfortunately 100 guys can all light, 1,000 guys might be able to light. You unfortunately are then subject to whatever the consensus of that 1,000 people is. You cannot charge a premium because you feel that your lighting is dangerous. Unless you're saying, I'm going to light it underwater. Then again, you see, then it goes into another ball game. So the question is, how specialized is your skill set?
There's some sort of qualification for stunts, because we're talking about risk. For example, if something happens, an accident, and there is some kind of legal, claim, they want to know if there were officially stunts in the production. So is there in Singapore some sort of qualification or union for stunts, or how does it work?
Sorry, stunts meaning what's stunts?
Yeah, people that they perform risk stunts.
Stunt coordinators.
Stunts. Sorry, I heard stunts. Okay. Are you asking about safety officers and what's the position on stunts here? Okay, first of all, the safety officer, according to Alvin's slides, just let you know, if you do not have more than 100 people in the building occupier, there is no need for safety officer. And we know that our film crews, don't exceed 50 or 70. So basically, there's never a need for safety officer in Singapore unless you go over 100. So the truth of the matter is that there is, legislatively speaking, there is no need for safety officer, which means that there is no. So the question is, who is the official stunt coordinator and stuff like that? I don't know if there's actually a stunt coordination protocol and training.
No, but that's what we should have, is that there should be guidelines, and that's why you pay good money to specialists, who are trained, who have experience. You see it in the showreel, you see it in the movies. They've got safety, they're trained in safety, techniques. That they are not just coming to tell you, oh yeah, cool, my guy doesn't care, he will just jump. He's going to say what liability will understand insurance, will understand all these things. This is what you pay good dollar for, with people with those kind of expertise.
Yeah. So I didn't completely get your question, but basically to answer that in a nutshell, from what we know, there is not enough structure in Singapore to make sure that all these people are in place. That this expertise and training doesn't exist. There's no stunt training in Singapore, to my knowledge. If somebody can prove me wrong, please feel free. I love to be proven wrong on this front, okay? But to my knowledge, it has not been established, which is why the conversation has to happen today, because if nobody raises it it never happens. It just sits as an issue that never gets resolved. Does this sort of answer your question?
Sort of, yeah.
So sorry, yeah.
Scare you from working outside.
We're not, and I hope you're not a producer and then go and take advantage of this, okay? No, just kidding. I'm sure you won't.
There are companies that do stunts, and they do have people who are, I guess they're trained internally,
Yeah,
but
it's
you know, as
really-
far as
yeah.
certification or licenses and everything, I don't think that's legally required in
Actually,
Singapore
it's a very
yet.
good question because if you ask the WSQ, the WDA, and they have it in their map, if it exists as a competency in the WSQ map, then a course can be developed. Then the question is, who's going to lobby for the course to be developed? Because you look at Singapore and say, how many stunt people want to be trained? 10? We can't run a course, not profitable. So the onus is
We
on
hear you,
you all
Ian.
to say,
Please.
I want a course because I think it's necessary. So let's get your question before we run out of time completely.
Actually, I just want to stress that we should be paid by our knowledge on a professionalism how to handle risk. It's not, we are not paying risk, we are getting rid of the risk.
Okay, fair
so
enough.
all those high risk jobs would be eliminated.
Fair point, fair point. So I really wish we didn't have to end, but the food's getting cold, and the beer is getting warm, and and I don't want to hold you guys back any further. So thank you so much, guys, for coming. You matter the most in this equation. Thank you so much. Okay.